If there's one thing we can't live without these days, it's our phone. We are so dependent on our phones. We are so attached to our phones. You'd think they would be an extension of our bodies. What if our phones are converted into a microchip that could be embedded in our forearm? This way, we don't break the screen. We don't have to worry about dropping it in water. And we don't have to lose it. We never lose it. It's on us. It's part of our bodies. Let me validate this idea. Let's go to Sweden for a moment. In the country of Sweden, thousands have traded in their ID cards for a microchip that's embedded in their hands. They use it to scan their hand to get into the gym and also to get on the trains. So today, I'm going to tell you about a process that's going to get us closer to this microchip I'm talking about. Do you recall the last time you went to the store to get your new phone? You go to the Verizon store, to the Apple store. You're so excited to be getting the latest and greatest technology. You feel like the coolest person on the block. You take your phone home, you look at it, oh wow, look at this screen, it's so huge, look at these features. Only 2 weeks later, Samsung or Apple release a new version of your phone. Frustrating, right? You're not the coolest person anymore. Why do they release so often? Because they are faced with the challenge of change. They need to move quickly. They need to stay on the competitive edge. They need to release early and often to shorten the feedback loop. There's a hunger for new and advanced features, and they need to move quickly to satisfy that need for customer satisfaction. So you say, how do they go about releasing so quickly, so often? They've adopted something called Agile. Agile has revolutionized the software industry for the past 19 years. The word agile might sound familiar to you in the context of moving quickly, nimbly, but it has touched every single one of us in one way or another, at one point or another. It's used by the largest technologies in the world: Boeing, Facebook, Google, Amazon, Adobe. With Agile, these companies take large, complex projects and they break them into chunks called iterations. So instead of releasing after 1 or 2 years, they release to the market every 2 or 4 weeks. They release, they get feedback, they inspect, they adapt, enhance, and re-release to the market for customer satisfaction. That's how they stay on the cutting edge. So where did this agile process come from? There was 17 frustrated developers and software developers that weren't happy with the way they were producing software. It was taking too long. So they went on a resort trip to Utah and went skiing. And they said, we don't like the way things are going. We can't wait a year or two to release software. It's called a waterfall approach, cascading waterfall, one big chunk at the end of 1 or 2 years. We want to release faster. We want to focus on people. We don't want to focus on documentation. We don't want to focus on negotiations. We want to focus on the customer and the people doing the work and release early and often. So they came to the conclusion that they need to come up with a manifesto. They called it the Agile Manifesto, focusing on teams delivering faster. So that's where Agile was incepted. And with the successes that they've seen in software of productivity, quality, faster delivery market, customer service, customer satisfaction, non-tech companies are saying, hold on a second, why are software companies doing so well? Why are they staying on the competitive edge? Why can't we do the same? We don't want to be left behind. Because the old way of doing things is no longer relevant. By the time you release in 1 year or 2 years, your product's going to be obsolete, no longer relevant. Do you want an outdated product? No. And at that time, it's too late to change course. So non-tech companies are getting onboarded on the Agile process. And a revolution of agility is sweeping the globe and transforming companies such as financial institutions, Fidelity, MFS, okay? Healthcare, biotech. That's what we need the biotech people to be on board so they can create that microchip with the IT people. Academia, academic settings are adopting Agile in classrooms. Anyone listen to NPR? NPR has adopted agility as well. So that what they're doing is they're taking these big projects, breaking them into small chunks, releasing early and often for continuous improvement so they can handle the challenge of change. So what does an agile process look like behind the scenes? I work for a software company, and we adopt agile. We take our large, complex project, and we work in 2-week iterations. So at the end of the 2 weeks, we have features to release to the market. We have an agile team called a Scrum. You can imagine where the word Scrum comes from. Anyone know? The game rugby, right? But that doesn't mean they butt heads, but rather they work together to meet a common goal. And in this instance, they're meeting that 2-week delivery to the market. My role is a Scrum master. Some of my friends, like Mary and Patrick, used to make fun of me and say, seriously, that's the title? Could you take the Scrum and just keep it as a master? So my role is to be a coach to the team, help them with the delivery of the software within the 2 weeks. I remove their challenges, their blockers. So once the team commits to what they can deliver in 2 weeks, they get to work. And then every single day for 15 minutes, they meet and they assess where they are. They inspect, they adapt. What are we doing? Are we working on relevant stuff? What are our challenges? How do we meet our challenges to meet that 2-week delivery? At the end of the 2 weeks, they meet with the product managers, product owners. They get their feedback. Hey, listen, this is what we've accomplished. Is this still relevant? These people might say, hey, hold on, I was in the market the other day and our competitor is doing this. Let's not do this. Let's do this instead in the next iteration. Remember, iteration is a chunk of work every 2 weeks. So at the end of the 2 weeks, what do you have? Features released to the market, getting feedback quickly, a new iteration begins. Continuous improvement, continuous delivery. Waterfall and agile. So let me put this process in perspective of in a school setting, right? When I was in graduate school at Boston University, I majored in journalism. And my professor was fascinated with the fact that I actually was born in Lebanon during the Civil War in Lebanon, 1975. He challenged me to write my thesis as an article, 50-page article, about my experience living through war in Lebanon. He said, 50 pages, 4 months. One big chunk of work. So as a kid living in the Civil War, I didn't remember much of the war because it was a sad time, the horrors of war. So I struggled trying to get 50 pages together. All I remembered was that we lived in hallways because it was the safest place to be when the bombs were exploding. There were 2 walls, we didn't have basements. And then when the curfew was lifted, we kids would run out and try to collect shrapnel from the bombs. That was our hobby, we did that. We collected collections of shrapnel, casings of bullets. So that's all I could remember. So I relied on my sisters and my parents' memories of the war and some research. I wish I had benchmarks. I wish I had support. I wish I had feedback along the way. I didn't have any of this. One large chunk at the end of 4 months. So by the fourth month, I delivered my paper to my professor. He looked at me and he said, horrible. Go back to the drawing board, 80% rewrite it, very close deadline. How would that have been done if I was to adopt Agile? I would have met with my professor, committed to what I can deliver in 2 or 4 weeks, met with him at the end of 4 weeks or 2 weeks and say, hey, am I on the right track? Continuous feedback. I could have assembled a group of graduate students working on their thesis as well. We could have been a la Scrum team where we could have met every day, held each other accountable for our deliveries of 2 or 4 weeks. I could have had a better process, and that's what Agile is about. So here is your takeaway about this process. The way of doing things and the challenge of change is no longer relevant. The technology is moving so quickly. The digital era is just fast. We need to adapt something that would work for us in any setting if we have a large project. So I put some acronyms around the word Agile in case you decide to transform to that process. A is for adapt. Continually adapt. See what's happening around you to advance to the next level. G is groom your requirements. You have features you're releasing in 2 or 4 weeks. Continue to look at them. What's going on in the market? What are you hearing outside of the company. What is your competitor doing? Refine these features before you release them. I is for iterate. Take that large, complex project and break it into chunks of 2 or 4 weeks. L is for launch, like lunch and learn, launch and learn. Deploy, send to the market, learn from the experience, relaunch. And E is for empowering your team. Scrum teams need to be empowered. Self-managing teams need to be creative, flexible, because successes have been documented of self-managing teams producing better results. So what's your biggest challenge in implementing Agile in the workplace? Senior managers. Onboarding senior managers to change the way they think. They're always used to dictating from the top down. This is what I want you to do. This is when I want you to get it done. In Scrum, it's different in Agile. You need to empower your teams. You make the decisions, you be flexible, you tell me what you can do and when you can get it done with. So your role is to onboard them on the successes of agility, such as quality, productivity, faster delivery to the market, customer satisfaction, and perhaps say, hey, let's try a small project agilely and see if that works. See what they say. Hey, let's do a pilot program. So here's my challenge to you, what I'd like to leave you with. I'd like you to go home and think about how you can implement Agile in your life. Is it with your to-do list? Or could it be in your classroom? Agile has been documented in the classroom, where teachers get to get a sense of the learning curve, and it empowers the students as a Scrum team to be able to make decisions. Or maybe go to work tomorrow and tell your boss, I went to a TED Talk and I'm hearing about this great Agile process. Maybe we should look into it and try it. Or you can implement Agile with your family. Your Scrum team could be your kids, and the chores could be your features. There's a terrific TED Talk by Bruce Feiler, how he implemented Agile in his family, and how successful it was that their kids were running around trying to get their chores done because they felt accountable and happy about achieving a common goal after 2 weeks. So going back to that chip in my arm, I know we're not there, but I think Agile will get us there. I'm not sure how many iterations it's going to take, but I think we'll be there. Thank you.